Palmer, run down these injuries in this Georgia situation. How impactful are these injuries? And of course, you know, you're not there to be able to get a great assessment on the injuries. You can only go on what's being stated to the media. But in regards to as much as you can gather, and based on what you know of the depth in those positions, obviously, and backing up those particular players, how impactful are these injuries as best you can estimate?
Yeah, there's a little bit of conflicting reports here on some of Georgia's injuries. And, you know, some people are reporting that the two most recent being Darnell Washington, sophomore tight end, and transfer that they brought in from West Virginia, Tyke Smith in the secondary. Both of them suffered foot injuries last week at practice. And initially it was reported that they would be out 3 to 4 weeks, maybe up to 6, which would have them, the 3 to 4 week timeline would have them missing the opener. That's kind of the timeline that I'm basing my judgment on this game around, because I do think that that's ultimately going to be closer to the timeline that we're going to be watching Georgia anxiously awaiting their return. You know, Kirby Smart came out Saturday, said that he believes that his team will be at full strength come the game. The initial report said those guys were day to day. However, Kirby Smart has you know, called some injuries day to day from mid-season till the end of the season, and we've never seen that guy play again. And so, you know, under my assumption here, I'm saying Georgia will be missing Darnell Washington. Georgia will be missing Tyke Smith. I think Smith is probably the bigger of the two injuries, given the questions that Georgia has in the secondary, replacing so many guys that headed to the NFL, a couple that transferred out as well. You know, and that star position being so important in Kirby Smart's defense, I think that the expectation was that Tyke Smith was going to step in and fill that role immediately. And now they're having to look further down the line. I do think that Georgia's got a great second option there in Latavius Brini. There was some talks that you know, those two guys were probably both going to play the position in the single game. You know, there was no clear-cut winner of that competition. And Georgia has a history of playing two stars. Last year they played Mark Webb and Tyreek Stevenson at the position. So there's no reason that they couldn't play two stars with Tyke Smith or Latavius Brini. Now with Smith potentially out for the game, I would say doubtful at this point. You know, I think it's going to be Brini. And he played in the bowl game. He played in the last couple of games of the season and you know, played well. I think that he's a guy that is, you know, he's been around the program for a while now. He's been behind Mark Webb and Tyreek Stevenson, to Mark Webb being someone that was there for 4 years. Stevenson, someone that came in as a 5-star and played right away. And now he's transferred out to Miami. So I think Brini stepping in at safety at star is going to be big for them. And it's also big for Georgia that they return Chris Smith and Lewis Cine at safety. I think, you know, with the questions that they have at cornerback, replacing 3 guys at that position, with the now question that they have at star, having to replace a guy that they probably were counting on to step in and play a big role immediately, having that back end of the secondary, back end of your defense shored up, and knowing what you've got there is huge, because it's important for those, you know, the communication in the secondary, especially when you're going up against a passing game like this. You know, it's going to be a big for the communication of the secondary to have those two guys, 2 veterans there in Lewis Cine and Chris Smith. You know, and then in terms of Darnell Washington's injury, I don't think it's as big of a deal as the Smith injury. It does hurt Georgia's passing game, because I think he was going to be a big part of the game this year. And Georgia wants to get those tight ends more involved. And when you've got a 6'7", 280-pound tight end, it's almost like you're running LeBron James out there at tight end. You know, he's hard to bring down. You saw that in the Peach Bowl against Cincinnati. And you saw it in the spring game against Georgia's first string defense. He was running over guys, making guys look foolish. And so, you know, to me, that is a loss that's going to hurt. But I do think, you know, he will be back for Georgia after this game. And Georgia's got options at that tight end room. John Fitzpatrick is a guy that caught a touchdown pass last year and has, you know, has started several games primarily as a blocking tight end, but has shown that he can be involved in the passing game. And then Brock Bowers is a guy that they're bringing in, highly rated recruit out of California. He's a guy that they really are excited about using in different ways, moving him around in the field, in the backfield, giving the ball to him on a jet sweep or something. He's a guy that Georgia fans are really excited about. Kirby Smart is really excited about, this entire coaching staff. We spoke with Todd Monken earlier, offensive coordinator Todd Monken, earlier in the preseason, and he's super excited about the ways that they can use Brock Bowers. He said it's their job to find ways to get him the ball and find ways to utilize his skill set. So I think those are the two big injuries. Warren Erickson on the offensive line is another one that hurts. There at center, he injured his snapping hand, missed the first scrimmage, but did participate in the second scrimmage. He's got the ability to snap with either hand, so you can put a cast on his I think he snaps with his left hand, so you can put a cast on his left hand and have him snap with his right. Georgia was also not settled at that center position in the first place, and so they very likely are going to end up going with Cedric Van Pran, former #1 center in the country in the 2020 signing class. He played in 4 games last season, and the coaches are very high on his development. Obviously Georgia's going to be without George Pickens, who tore his ACL in the spring. I think all college football fans are hopeful that he can get back on the field at some point this fall, just because of, for Georgia's sake, what he brings to the passing game. But for college football fans' sake, just the excitement that he can bring to the field in various ways. And then Eric Gilbert is another guy that Georgia is potentially going to be without. He's dealing with some personal issues. He was kind of expected to be that replacement in the passing game for the loss of Pickens. His status is up in the air, and we're learning more about that by the day. But I guess mentally I'm kind of counting him out because Georgia's been without him for 2 scrimmages now. So they're getting used to what a passing game without him is going to look like. Jermaine Burton is going to have to step up, and he's really going to have to step up all year long, take that leap as a sophomore that a lot of fans are expecting to see. Kyrus Jackson is a guy who had his knees scoped and has been working his way back. He's been involved in both scrimmages in a non-contact uniform. I would imagine that black jersey is coming off for a red one here before too long, and that he very likely will be on the field. My money would be on him being on the field for that first snap of the game. Arian Smith is a guy in the passing game that they're excited about. So Georgia's got some injuries. They're a banged-up football team right now, but I think that's the result of a physical camp. I take what Kirby Smart said with a grain of salt there, that I do think that they will get some of these guys back. I don't know that they will get all of them back. It's going to be interesting to follow those stories here in the coming weeks and as the game approaches. And I certainly think regardless of who is out there and who's not, Georgia's got the talent and depth there to have guys step in and do that next man up